What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about Rezolve AI. It's been a while since I've done a video on it, so I want to go over some of the data points, latest and updates, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So on Friday, it did go down 3.05%, 244 the low, 265 the high. But one thing I do want to bring up though is that you don't see that crazy of swings. So over the last 6 months, you've had plenty of kind of occurrences where it'd be up 7% 1 second, and then even second half of that same day, it goes down 10%. Massive swings. And that's just because of generally it did have lower volume. But because of its recent inclusion in the Russell 2 and 3000 indexes, that kind of stabilized it. So that's always going to be a kind of a good thing going forward. And so that did come out mid-June. My apologies on not doing a video during that time frame, but that essentially is a good catalyst. And as well, a lot of stocks that are somewhat heavily shorted, that's also a positive about it being included in a lot more indexes and a little bit more of an increase in liquidity, because typically any stock with low volume, like, it can be easily manipulated. So ultimately, when it comes down to shorts, 9.69% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 11.62 million shares. You can kind of see just previously, it's been as high as like 18-20% short interest, and that was February 2025. So during that time frame, it just went down. It went on a horrible downtrend, and a lot of that had to do with shorts. So lower volume, like I said, very easy to manipulate stocks. So cost to borrow is 80.91, short score is 80.84. DTC, so that does factor in their average volume in comparison to what is being shorted. So that is sitting at 1.5 days. So all in all, this might not be a crazy squeeze play that you need to get in, but the fact that shorts have been somewhat leaving is kind of a positive thing, in my opinion. And a lot of that has to do with probably the inclusion. Aside from that, the only PR that came out recently was on June the 26th, so somewhat same time frame as the inclusion news. So Rezolve AI establishes global professional services division amid surging demand in 500 billion enterprise AI market. So at the end of the day, that's one thing I've always stated that I really value about Rezolve's management, is that they are ambitious. They don't just sit back and assume that money and just customers are going to come to you. They go out and get it. So I think that's one thing that I really do value. Of course, there was a lot of other kind of potential red flags I've brought up in the past that still kind of linger, but it's not specific to Rezolve. It's just more of a sector type of problem, and that's just kind of increased competition. But again, if Rezolve continues to be ambitious, I think right now, latest thing I saw was like 16.5 million users. That's what they service through all of their partnerships. They did actually, on a side note, update their website since I last looked. So you see all their trusted brands, so FedEx, BJ, Phil's Coffee, many things that are listed here. So I think Rezolve is really good at going out there, getting business. So at the end of the day, I think it's just a matter of time before Wall Street does truly just appreciate what Rezolve is doing. So like I said in the past, I do realistically feel, and I still do honestly feel, that the full value of Rezolve should be between that kind of $7 to $10 range. Some people might feel that's a little bit on the low end, which is completely fair, but I think in reality, the market needs to kind of appreciate what Rezolve is doing. And currently, Wall Street is still very hesitant about the sector because it is trying to innovate a lot of businesses, and Wall Street is always kind of hesitant about that initially. So at the end of the day, I think it's just a waiting game, but nonetheless, coming from a value standpoint, it definitely has been lagging the last I'd say 2-3 weeks. Broader market, many stocks have been hitting all-time highs, have been really having a nice push higher. Rezolve regrettably has been kind of lagging. You can kind of even see that based on this. So even if we do compare it with the S&P is up 12.09. Rezolve, it is down 77.87%. And yeah, it's a lot of that. It's kind of improving recently, but still, bigger picture, it definitely has been lagging. Aside from shorts and everything else, looking at the options, 60,000 in calls, 14,000 in puts. So it's always had relatively low volume for options. But on a side note, last couple minutes of the trading day. So between 245 and 250, and also between 250 and 255, you had a lot of that premiums. So pretty much around 70% of the daily premiums were done there, and 66% of all the options were bullish in nature. So clearly there is a anticipation that this stock is going to move higher going into next week. Of course, options, there's only monthly chains, very limited strike prices, so I don't think it's all that popular. So not really much point in kind of analyzing this, because 250 is clearly going to be a key pivot in both directions. Aside from that though, you are seeing small transactions occurring on the secondary market and also the dark pool. So institutions are paying attention to it, not as much as I'm sure a lot of people would ideally like, but still it's a good improvement. So for instance, yesterday you did have one buy for 119,000 and then one sell that was done after hours for 331. Dark pool, there was one transaction for 156,000. Aside from all that fun stuff though, with it at 254, it is trading right now between this pivot and this S1. So 222 is a strong support, 277 followed by 331 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. Even comparing where it is on the fib levels to a lot of other growth stocks, it is lagging. Most right now are between this R2 and this R1. In some special circumstances between this R3 and this R2. So I think Rezolve is definitely lagging, but if, let's say, Trump doesn't really stir things up this upcoming week, big money is going to be looking for value, and that most likely will be occurring over the next little bit. Is big money is going to be looking for value, and Rezolve definitely does meet that criteria, because again, it on a technical standpoint has just been lagging. Aside from all that fun stuff though, looking as far as recent analyst ratings, so you can kind of see that there has been a couple new ones that did come out. So 12 days ago, 425 price target, Roth MKM, and this analyst has a 62% success rating, so pretty good in comparison to others. And then you did also have 15 days ago, $5 buy, Northland Securities, Michael, who has a 46% success rating, so not all that great. You did have AI Firm, $2, and so forth and so forth. So as a consensus, 504 is that price target, representing a 98.43% upside. So I also do cover on this channel SoundHound, pretty much direct competition to Rezolve in many cases, but one thing that did really work for SoundHound that got it a nice boost higher was its inclusion on various AI and tech ETFs. So most likely once Rezolve does kind of get a little bit more established, starts kind of moving up, then the exact same thing is going to happen to it, which will bring more and more awareness and more analysts ratings. So of course, once you get more $5 and $10 ratings, then the stock price will start to kind of move up, because that's kind of what Wall Street's all about, right? I am kind of pointing out how it does have a lot of good upside in the foreseeable future. Wall Street is just very narrow-minded, and all it needs is an analyst just to tell Wall Street, hey, you know what, this is actually a good deal, it might go to $5, then you kind of have the sheep following. So you can kind of always be one step ahead and buy the dip and do what you need and whatever else. Aside from that though, on the actual chart itself, so it is relatively kind of oversold a little bit, and you can tell that from the stochastic RSI. On the actual chart itself, it is below that 200-day moving average, so 294 is going to be that key breakout point. Essentially, it's still doing okay from the last little bit ever since the inclusion news, but that 200-day moving average, so 294 is going to be that big deal to really break out. And then that 50-day moving average at 227 is going to be that good support. And historically, that does result in kind of a 30% swing. So if it does break below that, then anticipate a further pullback. But honestly, the technicals are looking pretty good, and all it needs is that nice little push. And most likely that would be value investors just looking at Rezolve AI moving it higher. So let me know your thoughts on what's been happening with it. Where do you see things going realistically? Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What's your kind of general thoughts? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I do give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.